Не так! Welcome to Ukraine, сука!
Bakhmut, one of the longest and bloodiest clashes of the Ukraine war.
Bakhmut. Battle for Bakhmut. Russia now claims it has won the battle for Bakhmut, but the fighting continues. Both sides have taken massive casualties to control the symbolic but strategically marginal city in the east of Ukraine.
For months, the small city of Bakhmut in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk Oblast had been under siege. What had begun in August 2022 as a calculated Russian advance had soon spiraled into a relentless 9-month war of attrition that would redefine the modern battlefield. After a series of tactical setbacks across Ukraine, the Kremlin desperately sought a victory, any victory, to justify its faltering invasion. Bakhmut, a city of limited strategic importance initially, was transformed into a symbolic prize, a desperate objective for Moscow. The bulk of this brutal task was handed to the Wagner Group, a private military company led by Yevgeny Prighozin. Wagner's mercenaries had been steadily pushing towards Bakhmut since August 2022. Their methods were unforgiving: relentless frontal assaults, punishing artillery barrages, and a cold indifference to casualties. As the year ended, Bakhmut's name had become synonymous with devastation, but the turning of the calendar to 2023 would unleash a new, unprecedented level of horror. The winter would not bring a lull in the fighting, but an escalation into a bloody, dehumanizing struggle, unlike anything seen in decades. As January dawned, Bakhmut became the epicenter of a storm. The frozen ground offered little respite, turning trenches into icy tombs. Wagner, now heavily bolstered by a surge of convict recruits, launched an offensive of unparalleled scale and ferocity. The air filled with the constant shriek of incoming artillery and the crackle of small arms fire. This was the month the meat grinder truly earned its name. Russia was expending up to 50,000 artillery shells per day, pulverizing neighborhoods into dust. In the nearby salt mining town of Soledar, Wagner demonstrated their terrifying effectiveness. For weeks, they hammered the town, employing wave after wave of expendable fighters. They were sent forward, often with minimal equipment, their sole purpose to draw Ukrainian fire, to exhaust their ammunition, to reveal their positions. The scene inside Soledar was apocalyptic. Ukrainian defenders described facing endless human assaults, often in -degree temperatures. It was a battle of attrition, where human lives were considered ammunition. On January the 12th, Prighozin, seizing the moment, publicly declared victory in Soledar, standing defiantly in the salt mines, a symbolic gesture designed to elevate his own status and overshadow the conventional Russian military. His triumph, however, was built on mountains of bodies.
The air crackles with the sound of gunfire. Ukrainian and Russian troops are engaging at close quarters. The Kremlin claims to have captured the salt mining town of Soledar, but holding it may be another matter. Units wait on standby to medevac troops. Armoured vehicles rushing along broken roads, attending to the injured. Both sides have taken serious casualties under the relentless barrages of artillery. Very few people have remained in this area, and as we passed destroyed homes, the bombs started falling once again.
Well, there's a lot of fighting still going on here. We've just had the sound of a shell screech overhead. Now, it's not clear exactly what's going on inside Soledar, but it seems that the Ukrainians have been pushed out and are very much on the outskirts at the moment. But the big concern is for civilians who are still trapped inside.
As the new year begins, fighting resumes, and it is among the bloodiest scene in Europe since the Second World War. Soledar is quickly overrun by a mixture of Wagner troops and the regular Russian army, and the Ukrainians force back across the Bakhmut River. This severs the northern supply road towards Siversk, and soon the western E40 highway is also cut. In the south, the Wagner and Russian troops also break through and capture Klishchivka, which sits atop high ground, bringing their artillery within range of the other westward supply road known as the Road of Life.
Inside Bakhmut itself and in the surrounding trenches, survival became the only objective. The sound was inconsistent.
It felt like another week or two, and we would lose Bakhmut.
The whistle of mortars, the thud of artillery, the persistent rattle of machine gun fire.
They had way more manpower. Grenade! It was 1 to 10 at its lowest. Guys, there's a... It was a road of death for the occupiers. They threw corpses into pits. They didn't remove them, just put them together. For Bakhmut's defenders, it was a road of life.
Days blurred into weeks, marked only by the intensity of the attacks and the rising casualty counts. For the Ukrainian defenders, holding the line against Wagner's relentless storm detachments was a test of endurance unlike any other. They described facing human waves that seemed to materialize from the smoke and rubble, often without cover, simply advancing until they were cut down. One Ukrainian soldier recounted that of his 21-man platoon, 18 were either wounded or killed within 24 hours. The psychological toll was immense. Soldiers reported seeing their comrades fall, only to be replaced by new, desperate faces moments later. Ukrainian forces, though outmatched in firepower, fought with creativity and resilience, using ambush tactics, drone-guided artillery, and intimate knowledge of Bakhmut streets.
Не так, не так. Welcome to Ukraine, сука!
On the Russian side, the Wagner convict fighters faced a different kind of horror. Promised freedom, they were thrust into the most dangerous frontline positions. Retreat meant execution, either by Ukrainian fire or by Wagner's own internal blocking units and brutal commanders. Stories emerged of summary executions of those who hesitated or tried to surrender. This wasn't just warfare, it was a meat grinder designed to consume lives at an industrial scale, regardless of allegiance. By January 2023, the number of convicts recruited by Wagner had reached 50,000. By the end of January, only about 10,000 of these 50,000 prisoners were still in service. A tiny percentage have been freed after 6 months, but the rest having been killed, wounded, or deserted. The sheer number of casualties on both sides was staggering, transforming the very landscape of Bakhmut into a grim cemetery.
Wagner has perfected its meat assault tactics, and Ukraine is suffering because of it. Until this point, defending Bakhmut was strategically smart for the Ukrainians because it inflicted far heavier casualties on the Russians than it did on them. At one point, the ratio was 5 Russians for every 1 Ukrainian. However, From this point on, it becomes a case of diminishing returns. Russian casualties remain high throughout, but that 5-to-1 ratio narrows considerably. Ukraine is also expending some of its best troops, whilst Russia is only losing mercenaries and conscripts. By the end of February, Russian forces have advanced up to the Bakhmut River inside Bakhmut itself. In the south, they have reached the Seversky Donetsk Canal and are now threatening to cut the road of life through Ivaniska. They are also approaching the only other road out of the city, near Kromove, in the north. Two pincers are now advancing around Bakhmut. If Russia can close them, it will mean the destruction of tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers inside. Despite this, friction begins to develop between the Russian military and Wagner over who exactly is responsible for these successes. Prighozin begins to complain that the Russian MOD is limiting his supplies of ammunition, causing high casualties. Seeing these pincers closing, Ukrainian military intelligence privately warns Zelensky that the situation in the city is catastrophic. But rather than withdraw, Ukraine doubles down, deploying its feared Kraken special forces to keep the road of life open. Bitter trench battles now break out in the north and south, as both sides fight to the death over mere feet of ground.
Не заходи! Владиславка, не заходять! Сейчас, секунду. Справа! Гранату дай! Все, Марк, 200.
Идем.
200, дальше.
Блядь. Прямо идем.
Крию.
Продвигайся вперед.
Я не можу, вузько.
Блядь, пацаны, быстрее.
Давай, братанчик, не переживай. Рухайся.
Заходим. Прямо.
Рух.
Слева и справа, пидоры, в блиндаже, надо зайти. Давай, иди вперед.
Чекай.
Зліва два підора.
Зліва? Зліва де?
Пизда! Огнепад 300! Братан, с тобой нормально?
Я не знаю, братан.
Оттягиваем.
Потягнись.
Нет, стой, сидим тут.
Братан, мені уїбало прямо в броню. Може при... Братан, давай.
Юр!
Спартак, дивись туди. А я дивлюсь прямо.
Идите, пидорские норы!
Братан.
Нет, сказали, блядь, оттягиваться пидорские норы, нахуй.
Блядь, важко дихати.
Блядь, я нихуя не слышу, сука! Пидорасина!
Важко дихати. Да, выжми, он есть.
The Russian military continues to operate with a Soviet-style centralized command, a rigid system that has persisted despite attempted reforms aimed at increasing lower-level leadership and autonomy. This top-down command style at the tactical level has consistently contributed to inflexible operations, leading to repeated failures and high casualty rates throughout the conflict. A significant contributing factor to this rigidity is the historical absence of an effective non-commissioned officer or NCO corps within the Russian military. Unlike Western armies where NCOs serve as a crucial bridge between officers and enlisted personnel, Russian junior officers often bear responsibilities typically handled by senior NCOs, increasing their span of control beyond what young leaders can effectively manage in combat. This burden contributes to high casualty rates among junior and field-grade officers, further reinforcing the top-down direction and discouraging initiative at the tactical edge. The decision-making process is inherently slow in the Russian army. Information from the front lines takes considerable time to reach headquarters, where decisions are made at the highest levels before orders are transmitted back for execution. This sluggish cycle puts the Russian army at a significant disadvantage in modern warfare, where rapid adaptation is critical. Furthermore, the Russian leadership prioritizes the political loyalty of officers over their battlefield effectiveness. This emphasis has led to the relief or imprisonment of competent military leaders for perceived criticism or insufficient loyalty, further eroding the capacity for the independent thought and action within the command structure. The Kremlin's rule relies on controlling information and suppressing welcome intelligence, which fosters a culture of self-deception. This means that strategic decisions are often based on faulty information, and negative feedback from the battlefield is adjusted or ignored, perpetuating flawed assumptions. This pervasive centralization serves as a root cause of operational stagnation and high casualties. The rigid top-down command structure, a direct inheritance from Russia's autocratic history, stifles initiative and adaptability at lower echelons, contrasting sharply with Western mission command philosophies. This prevents rapid adaptation to fluid battlefield conditions and new Ukrainian tactics. Lessons learned at the front are slow to propagate up the chain of command, and even slower to result in doctrinal changes or tactical shifts. This forces commanders to continue with ineffective, high-cost tactics like frontal assaults, even when they are clearly failing. The system prioritizes control and loyalty over military effectiveness, leading to a self-defeating cycle where battlefield failures are met with political purges rather than genuine operational reform. This systematic flaw is a fundamental reason why Russia struggles to achieve its initial strategic objectives and resorted to attritional warfare in Bakhmut. Just as a little brief visual example of this is from Bakhmut. I'm sure a few of you already know the footage. This is from what was Bakhmut's petrol station. Russia just continued trying to take, I don't even know what you class it as being anymore, but at least 500 of them died for this ground. Corruption is an exceptionally prevalent feature of the Russian system. This deep-seated issue has historical roots dating back to Tsarist times. Within the military, this pervasive rot manifests in numerous ways. Over 80% of defence construction contracts are reportedly unexecuted despite being fully funded, and embezzlement cases have nearly doubled since the war began. On the battlefield, this corruption is evident in the theft of equipment and supplies. Tanks lack explosive reactive armour, reserve tanks are non-functional due to stolen vital parts, and soldiers are sent into combat without protective vests or with inferior models. Medical kits are incomplete, and troops face shortages of fuel and expired rations. Furthermore, commanders embezzle salaries by claiming more soldiers than are present, leading to undermanned units and soldiers who are often unpaid for months or do not receive promised combat bonuses. A Russian soldier's account confirms that the corruption and mess in the army is costing too much, noting that soldiers resort to self-inflicted injuries to escape combat and collect pay. I've also seen in quite a few reports, we all know that Russia's corrupt, but when Prighozin was constantly complaining of his shell hunger, that was due to corruption. But not that I know better, but I'm not so convinced, and I'll try and explain why. Vladimir Putin didn't just inherit the Kremlin, he engineered an entire system around himself. A system of rivalry, distrust, and paranoia. Not by accident, but by design. In Putin's Russia, institutions don't cooperate, they compete. The military, the FSB, the the GRU, the Rosvardia, even the private armies like Wagner are all set up to clash. Each one fights not only external enemies, but each other, jockeying for resources, influence, and the president's approval. There's no unity of command, no streamlined structure. Putin thrives by keeping his lieutenants divided, unsure, and dependent on his favour. It's not just a power structure, it's a loyalty test. The goal isn't efficiency, it's control. He doesn't want alliances between services. He wants surveillance. They spy on one another, they sabotage. This constant infighting bleeds into the battlefield. Commanders hoard information, units withhold support from rivals, coordinated operations break down. Not because of enemy fire, but because no one wants the other guy to succeed. The Russian invasion of Ukraine revealed its dysfunction in real time. The 60-mile convoy to Kyiv stalled. No fuel, no food, no plan. Wagner and the Ministry of Defense constantly undercut each other. Even basic logistics failed, because the system isn't built to win wars, it's built to protect one man's throne. This is Putin's paradox. A regime that survives on fear and disunity, but in doing so, poisons itself from within. A military and intelligence machine that's always looking over its shoulder instead of over the next hill. Fast forward to late 2022, Russia had suffered setback after setback. Kyiv held, Worsen was lost, morale was in the gutter. Putin needed a win, any win. And that's when Bakhmut became the focus. A city just 7 miles wide, strategically not that important, but in a war built on symbolism, Bakhmut became everything. Not because of what it meant to Ukraine, but because of what it meant to the rivalries within Russia. Yevgeny Prighozin, a convicted criminal turned warlord, saw an opportunity to make Wagner, not the Russian army, the face of victory. He deployed tens of thousands of convicts from Russian prisons, poorly trained, barely equipped, but expendable. And Wagner's bloody advances were trumpeted on Telegram as evidence that he, not the Ministry of Defense, was winning the war. Every trench taken, every village captured, Prighozin used it to humiliate the Russian high command. He called Shoigu and Gerasimov traitors, cowards, and incompetent bureaucrats. He claimed that the regular army was hiding behind his fighters, and that Wagner was doing all the real fighting and all the real dying. Then came the turning point. Wagner began running low on ammunition. Artillery shells, essential for trench warfare, stopped arriving. The Russian Ministry of Defense also stopped Wagner from recruiting prisoners. Convoys were stalled, fire missions were cancelled, and Wagner's losses began to skyrocket. The Ministry of Defense blamed logistics, but many, including Prighozin and some outside observers, believe otherwise. One theory is that it wasn't incompetence, it was deliberate. That the MOD, increasingly embarrassed by Wagner's public success, withheld ammunition to bleed Wagner dry, to punish Prighozin, to make sure that if Wagner took Bakhmut, it would be a Pyrrhic victory, bought with unsustainable losses. Putin, as always, said nothing. At least that is, Putin said nothing publicly. In my mind, at least. I don't know if you'll agree with me. Professional Russian army's out. He doesn't want to pull off a full mobilization. But surely the professional Russian army should be doing better than a bunch of child murderers and rapists and God knows what else that they've let out from prisons. But at this point, Wagner was the only real unit from the whole Russian military sphere that was making any advances. And I can see Putin screaming at Shoigu and Gerasimov about this. And then I can see Shoigu and Gerasimov being like, whoa, 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 stop sending them all this stuff. Stop. It's just a theory, but it makes sense, right? Another example of this rivalry, and this one I think is very justified. So let's say that you're a professional, although I put that in brackets, a professional Russian soldier who's got a contract. Let's say you were 2 years into a 4-year contract. You signed in 2020, 2022, the war breaks out, you're 2 years in. You somehow survive till 2024. Putin made it law that you cannot leave the military now, no matter what your contract was, until the war's finished. Whereas, one of these little scumbags who literally raped an 85-year-old could not even do months in his first year of his sentence and can be released to go and fight in Ukraine, then get wounded in Ukraine, and then be seen by the victim's neighbours walking around the same town, all in the space of 18 months. Now you imagine being that Russian soldier and think of the resentment that would cause you. And rightly so, rightly so.
Пиздец высадили! Мужики! Блядь, отстрел, сука!
So why was this done? Again, I think it goes back to how badly the initial stage of the first scale invasion went. But the bigger fear was having to do a mass mobilization, which they did do, don't get me wrong, but it was people who've already served. They haven't done a mass civilian mobilization, and that was always Putin's biggest fear. So it was better just to let Wagner get all of these scum out of the prisons. Who would really mind? They're scum. But then it starts to become a problem when the scum are the only ones making advances. But then, because they're the only ones making advances, you have to an extent, keep feeding that, or else you're making advances nowhere. But then you've got a tiger by the tail, haven't you? You see what I'm trying to get at? As winter ceded to spring, the strategic lines in Bakhmut tightened, but the intensity of the fighting only escalated. From February to May 2023, the battle became a desperate struggle for every street, every building, every ruin. Wagner continued their brutal forward momentum, pushing deeper into the city's crumbling heart. By March 2023, Wagner had control of the eastern half of the city. The urban landscape became a labyrinth of death traps. Snipers lurked in shattered high-rises. Artillery pounded positions relentlessly, turning residential blocks into mountains of dust and twisted metal. Ukrainian forces, though battered and exhausted, fought valiantly. Knowing every inch conceded meant a direct threat to their supply lines and deeper positions.
Помогай, помогай. Сосать! Давайте, покемоны все, давайте, помогите. Что есть, стреляйте!
The air was thick with smoke, dust, and the stench of death. Supply routes for the Ukrainian defenders became perilously narrow, earning them the grim nickname, the Road of Death. Every vehicle bringing in ammunition or evacuating the wounded faced constant, merciless shelling. The city was being strangled, slowly suffocated under the weight of endless bombardment and human sacrifice.
An infantry group, about 10 Wagner men, were trying to approach our position. Do you see someone? There! 1 o'clock! 1 o'clock! It was an unpleasant situation. An enemy tank has fired right at our position. Guys, hold the trench at 12 o'clock. Artillery is gonna work now. They managed to enter the forest and came so close to our dugout that it was dangerous for our guys to strike them with artillery. Guys, stand! At that moment, an Alpha group helped us too, because they had FPV drone operators. With the first launch, we eliminated one infantryman on the vanguard. He used the Kevlar cape to cover himself from our drone. It didn't help him though. A Russian is dragging a sleeping bag. A sleeping bag! A direct hit. Yeah! Phil Dimon here. A kamikaze drone has just hit the... He was severely wounded. The next group was going to evacuate him rather than attack us. The wounded was some important Wagner man. Wagnerites basically never evacuated their injured, but that happened to be the rare moment when they were dragging someone important. With one of the next launches, we targeted this evac group. Our tactic was to exhaust the enemy, so we were circling above them. Same spot still. They are shooting at you. They are scattering. Take them down. First they thought of escaping somehow. They started shooting at the FPV drone. And then it struck right in the middle of this group. Oh, cool! The enemy did not carry out further offensive actions. Then we worked along supply routes, cutting off their logistics. We destroyed about 100 units of enemy equipment, and about 200 were hit.
Despite high casualties, the Ukrainians succeed in slowing and then stopping the Russian advance. This drives Prighozin wild. The mercenary leader was hoping to earn easy brownie points with Putin by taking Bakhmut, but he is now months behind schedule and watching his beloved Wagner group, the source of his power, get butchered. Though the Ukrainians have succeeded in stopping Russia's encirclement, Wagner troops are now camped out dangerously close to the only two roads out of the city. Both are well within artillery range, and this complicates getting supplies into the city and casualties back out again, as convoys have to dodge explosions the whole way. At this point, Ukrainian generals know they cannot hold on forever, but they'll be damned if they're going down without a fight.
Соседнее здание прямо, сука, высунул ебал. Курва, сука, сколько за дверь. Петух вонючий, он с пекой там сидит, нахуй. Напротив нас здание? Напротив нас здание, нахуй. Блядь, отработай с пекой туда, заебал. Пустой. Блядь, он прям, сука, их там двое.
Киньте туди гепку.
Под ствол, а тут кинь.
Там кот пошел. Вон.
Вот. Венера. Пидорас. Вот у нас дом кинули, как принято. У нас домик кинули, пытаемся их вырезать. Гранаты кидать. Ты нам? Да. Высуни, ебал. Сейчас бы как бы гэпка не залетела.
Hey, voices for Ukraine. So again, I'm on the front line near Bakhmut. Crazy situation because I'm sitting in trench. This is my AK and this is my sniper rifle. So what can I say? We are in position. It's only few of us sitting here in the field, and enemies there and there and there also. So they almost surrender us. They almost around us, and we are in situation when they can approach to our position from any direction. In this situation, maybe your mood can be not so happy and not so high, but for now it's pretty warm weather, and I bring to position delicious coffee and I'm still alive, so life is really amazing, guys. Life is really amazing.
The task was set to conduct counter-offensive actions in the Bakhmut area. It was necessary to stabilize the situation around the city and drive the enemy back from the position they had just occupied.
Let's go, let's go, let's go!
Ideally, before any unit carries out assault actions, reconnaissance addition as a building or cost additional reconnaissance is done, and at least part of the people who will participate directly in the assault should be in the positions through which we are storming. We had such an opportunity, which was a huge advantage, and it was precisely thanks to this and the good training of our fighters that we were able to incur real minimal costs compared to the enemy, despite getting into a difficult situation. The first stage was when we just entered the 5-floor buildings, brought in a small group, and changed them every day. We had 2 days. What did it give us? First, we could already fight with the enemy because the enemy was already active enough.
Come on, come on, come on!
Is percent there? Percent!
That is constant offensive actions from the enemy. Attempts to take, let us say, the last 5-floor building that remained with us. The nature of actions and the level of enemy preparation are actually very important factors.
I never thought I would have to fight penal battalion units in my life. And human waves, just human waves that do not end. To our great surprise, Wagner, well, let's speak the facts as I understand it. Some of them are trained professionals, which are not used in these mass suicide attacks. Let's call them bonsai attacks.
Even the neighbors had a recording on a quadcopter, for example, when 4 people approach, and to one of these 4 they say, "Oh, bro, go check what's around the corner." He goes, "There are our mines and barriers." He explodes, the 3 rush in. Half an hour passes, they return as 4 again. Bro, go see what's there. Nah, he goes, explodes, and this could happen 6 to 8 times in a row, and so every half hour. Now, in terms of the number of resources like human cannon meat, there are no problems at all there. Again, the 58th Brigade was captured on video. Some people are storming, obviously. They are being taken out by our artillery, my mortars that we were coordinating. Obviously, some are scared, some want to live, they turn back, run back, and their own side shoots them. That is, they still carry out some subsequent actions, we open fire on them, and they discover our military positions. Here the TAC, the artillery, tanks and aviation begin to work. They simply have a wide range of support options, so to speak.
But this meet is pretty strictly regulated, so that means their team is pretty professional.
After we captured the 5-story buildings, we held them for about 4 to 5 more days. We held our positions, identified enemy fire points, and bombarded with our mortars and artillery. In other words, we repelled several enemy infantry assaults. Let's say enemy stormtroopers. The fighting spirit was high, and it was just like playing Counter-Strike game. We had exactly 1 day for rest. At 11 o'clock in the evening, we received an assignment. So, the assault on the village, that's it, there's the village for you. At 4 in the morning, we were already loaded into the armored personnel carrier. So at 11 in the evening, I left the headquarters. At 2 in the morning, I was still issuing machine guns to the neighboring company. There, a tripod. In general, we were also exchanging some equipment that we needed. By 1:30 in the morning, we finished. I finished at about 2 or 2:15. At 4 in the morning, we were already up, so at 4:30, we were already loaded into the vehicles.
All orders are given over the radio. Everything is executed. And then it turns into a mess, chaos, explosions. Intense gunfight, fire.
In our battalion, we have a spirit that if there is a task, we do everything.
Fear is normal, but it's not normal when a man cannot overcome his fear. That's what is not normal. Someone practiced martial arts and you feel jittery before sparring. What do you think about what would happen after the sparring? During sparring, everything disappears for you. It's like meditation. You are focused on this now, and nothing else matters. It simply doesn't exist. You just perform, do the work, the task. And that's all. That's all. What is heroism on the battlefield generally? Heroism on the battlefield happens when something goes wrong. When everything is going normally according to plan, there is no place for heroism. It's just getting the job done. Heroism occurs when something is extraordinary and goes beyond the ordinary. When that kind of thing is happening, I directly give orders, but I do not participate in it. I would be ashamed if I were not there at the positions and just 80 meters away from the enemy. I would simply be ashamed in that case. It's just that simple.
Let's go. I told you, damn it, you went to war. I said, damn it, nothing will happen. I will still say, attach bayonets, damn it, on the elbow, on the armpit. So that's it. Shut up, let's go. Attack.
At Kurdyumivka, the task was to push the enemy out of the village itself, not to storm the village, just push them out. If the operation started and everything, as always, did not go as planned, and that's it. We fueled up, got back into the APSSs, crossed a bridge, rushed into the village, and that's it. It's like playing Counter-Strike again.
We drove in cars to Kurdyumivka. It was 7 in the morning. We got out, refueled the cars, and got back in. You're driving, the hatch opens. You're already in the village. The fight is on. We're already in the village. We just managed to get into the village. That's it. We got out. We went according to the plan set in advance. When you're in the car, you feel the pressure, you're nervous, you spin. Then you get out of the car, all right, and you move on. Just like in a computer game, the hatch opens and you're at war, that's it.
There were no prisoners sitting there, but there was the element of surprise. They had just taken over the village. I understand why so little time was given for preparation, so that they wouldn't have time to dig in, secure themselves, settle in, and everything else. That is, we had to immediately take it back. We drove the M113 straight into the village. Calmly opened the hatches, we went out and started killing all those who came out of their houses. That is, they just came out of their houses, and the guys shot them, plainly. They didn't understand at all what was happening. Everything worked out, everything was great.
Let's move quickly in pairs! But many of them died there, of course, a lot. When you kill some of them, the mood lifts, and so the fighting spirit rises. I was in the center, in the most interesting part. In my group, in the first vehicle, I was following my platoon that was advancing along the central street. What was given to us, for example, 5 hours of time, we have done in about an hour.
The bastards didn't have time to understand that we were already in the village. We took the position that was assigned to us for a day. We occupied almost half of the village in an hour. We went in ways they didn't expect us to come out. What is needed is to act unconventionally, boldly, very boldly always, and with character, because character decides. So if we press them, we press them.
They have nothing to counter the audacity of our infantry. We simply burst into the settlement, on the move,
overturned the enemy, and completed the task for the day in just 2 hours. The enemy was literally shot down there, even during smoke breaks.
That contact there was literally 10 meters.
The closest contact we had was 10 centimeters. When our guy called, come here, and he ran to him closely. He asks, are you ours? And he was like, yes, Russian, bam. His head literally flew off, like, wow. And we're like, you really tricked him there, for sure. And there were other guys there too. About 70 meters away from us, we see them running. We're like, guys, over here, over here. They're like, all right, they're running towards us. They ran around. And the guys, boom, it's all done. They rolled over there. A group that was trying to reach us was at a certain distance where our flanking members were supposed to be. We were trying to call them over. Guys coming here to us, they listened, they came to us, and we just killed them.
I had young guys in my group. It was their first fight. He showed himself very commendably.
They followed orders without doubt. No one questioned what we were doing and what needed to be done. It was the first battle.
They were pulling up their reserves, started to transfer reserves in panic, ran into their own minefields, their own...
The Russians blew themselves up on them. Well, it was already visible from the computer. But since our flanks were there and neighboring units could not keep up with us, we had to stop. And at the moment of stopping, artillery started working.
The artillery began working intensively.
Guys, don't stand around! Come here! The artillery is about to start firing!
There were between 18 and 29 shots fired at the same time. That's how many barrels were working in this small area.
Ramadan chick, let's move back a little bit.
We cleared up to a certain border of the settlement, secured ourselves, and waited for our comrades who were supposed to align with us and continue our actions further. Well, something went off plan for our comrades, and accordingly, the entire assault went off plan. So we had to act according to the situation, so to speak.
When the guys are advancing, I'm also moving along with them. And then I realize we're starting to get surrounded.
That's it! That's it!
An anti-tank guided missile hit my M1 of 3, missed, and we realized that the road we were driving on, as there was no other, was completely under fire. It was targeted by an anti-tank guided missile, and then an SPG joined in.
The enemy regrouped and started striking, began to surround us. Accordingly, we started a gradual retreat to avoid complete encirclement, because right now they were just adjusting their fire. We gradually withdrew, but some people got very far ahead and consequently were cut off.
The first platoon, the small platoon, moved along the left flank. On the right flank, the percent platoon was advancing. The small one was already surrounded from two sides. It turns out they were surrounded because the flank was open. And they calmly simply entered, let's say, and attacked us from behind.
This is how glory is won in sweat and blood. Here is our werewolf.
My group found itself in a deadlock situation where enemies were advancing from all sides. You couldn't retreat because enemies were pressing from behind. You couldn't go sideways because enemies were pressing, and support groups were also advancing from the front. And we were informed via radio that 40 people were moving in support from the direction of the quarry, just like that.
Hey kid, we have a lightly wounded here. Let's pull back. Let's
On an escape routes, started moving away, shifted about 100 meters to the side, and then we realized we were surrounded. I decided to take defensive positions, set up a circular defense in the building, and look for the right moment to get out, because there were no other options.
After which I ordered the little to fight his way out of the encirclement at the moment when the percentage platoon was supposed to provide them with cover. So there were not many options left. Then the percentage platoon was commanded to break through to the first platoon to extract them and then get out of the fight together.
It was necessary to pull them out to the positions where our neighbors were, but it turned out that enemy forces were already there. We found out about it during our maneuver.
The first time they tried to do it on foot, it didn't work for them on foot because we initially attempted the assault with a very small number of people. Ideally, the minimum number of people for storming this village, at least for our group, should have been at least twice as many. At least. That is the absolute minimum. It was then decided to use the M113, that is as cover and as a quick delivery of personnel to the Littles group.
We took a car, grabbed a couple of volunteers, and decided to make a mountain maneuver, get to them, and pull them out of there. Because we didn't fully understand the positions, where they are located, the structure itself. We drove a little to another street.
Then there was a communication issue. That is, the first platoon reported its position at one point. I, the command, relied on this, and the second platoon, Prozen's platoon, also relied on this. In fact, they were in a completely different location.
We were already engaged with gunfire. We didn't expect them to be so close to us. We made a maneuver, drove back one street, and then the RPG team appeared. And the infantry was close to about 30 meters away. And we had the back door open. The guys were very brave and shot the RPG gunners. These orcs ran to hide behind a metal fence. It's not a very good cover. The guys killed them too. We drove on, crossed another intersection, and another RPG shooter was already firing at us. Phew, well, the rocket flew by. We're like, well, got lucky. The guys also pushed a bit on this. We made another maneuver.
We left, moved over there. Again, communication realized that he's not there, meaning not where he reported. A decision is made for a second attempt.
Already. And already tried a second time to break through to our guys. They were already surrounded. A heavy fight began. Naturally, we exposed ourselves. Fire from a grenade launcher started on us. We began to fight back. We rolled back a bit, back to our positions. They moved back, secured the position again. There was another attempt to gather a group to break through with infantry. We already more or less knew where the enemy forces were, which buildings they occupied, and how to cross. On the other side, there was also reinforcement, such as enemy reserves, and they started pushing us back. 9 o'clock. So we had contact at 12 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, and those who came from the right flank at 1 o'clock. So they started pushing us back and effectively cut us off from our guys. So getting through to them was already unreal. The fire was very intense. We shot back. Before that, we also identified their machine gun crew. It came in, it did not see us. It started firing in the direction where they probably thought we were. Just like that, our guys with character ran in, disassembled from the grenade launchers, threw grenades, then they all retreated. Then the intensity of the fire kept increasing.
Apply the tourniquet to the arm. Quickly. Can it go on the leg? On the arm, quickly. Come on. Tighten it.
Then I made the difficult decision to order a retreat instead of pushing forward to join the group from the first platoon. This is my responsibility, my decision. It's debatable. I still argue with myself whether I made the right decision. The decision was made to pull back the second platoon, to align the defense line with the second company, to keep it intact. And then make some decisions, at least the possibility to defend. Meanwhile, in the same village of Zaitseve, the assholes were successfully bringing in reserves. Dogoma and the number of their forces far exceeded ours. After this, I made the decision to withdraw my company. Plus, it was agreed with the battalion commander and friend Rola that Company 2 would also come out. We led them out of the village and started the evacuation. They also retreated while fighting. After evacuating all those people who managed to pull back and get out, let's say, from the fight, I also gave my command and staff vehicle to the fighters so they could drive. And I moved to the battalion commander's vehicle, Rola, and we started sitting and thinking together with the headquarters about how to extract those guys who got surrounded.
The density of anti-tank weapon fire, including that of large caliber machine guns, was intense, preventing them from advancing. However, since the enemy did not fully understand what was happening there, he did not conduct a complete clearing of the entire area at night, but was preparing for defense and for our second assault attempt. No? So judging by the intercepts, judging by what they are doing now, the enemy was preparing to repel another assault. There were given orders from Russian commanders to abandon the wounded, to mine and switch to defense, to set up a fire system.
For them, it was the main moment. Actually, well, we went on defense around 10 in the morning and stayed until approximately 5 in the evening. There was no other option. Well, I told the commander that I would only lead the group out at night, that's all, but since we couldn't go out during the day. We did communicate, we had contact with him. What the situation was difficult. Everyone gathered in one house. The bastards surrounded them, threw grenades and shot at them. But there was really no way and no one to break through to them. That's the story. There were no tanks, nothing at all.
So we took up a defense in a private house, and they started to, so to speak, smoke us out from there. And they set the house on fire. Had already started setting the house on fire. And we realized that we need to get out of there somehow. There were only a few ways out. It was either through the window or through the door. You can't go out through the door, and at night it's easier to slip out the window than during the day.
Then it got dark. Our house began to be successfully set on fire because we had been sitting in the house for a very long time. They couldn't reach us from there in any way, not with grenades, and grenades flew into the windows. And they shot at the house with RPGs, and they realized that we were sitting there tightly. Then they decided to set the house on fire. Next, a decision was made. We probably rode around the village and the cemetery for another hour and a half with Rolo, with Shapa, with everyone else, understanding how to extract them. And I left the most fearless crew, another one of our own M113s, so that in case of anything, there would be a possibility to evacuate the guys. Honestly, a practical solution. Really, there was no real working solution, just really wasn't. My second tough decision was when I realized that either I gather the remnants now, well, I had 15 assault troopers left in action at that moment. So either I take these 15 assault troopers now and go to storm the village. Again, with reserves and risk losing them to Ospar, or think of an alternative plan. But it was a very difficult decision. It was a very difficult decision. I decided that we would consider another plan.
At night, after creating, we decided, meaning they also with them, that they now wait until nightfall. When it gets dark, then accordingly we create an artillery fire corridor for them. The artillery begins to pour down, creating a certain corridor, an exit for them. They accordingly start to exit under this cover. They split into groups of 2 or 3 people. With the fight, because there were still patrols, although they completely cleared the area, there were patrols, and in this corridor they started to exit.
By the time the plan was ready, it was already dark. And the guys turned off the radio stations because we were sure some of the radio stations were lost, since at that point there were already casualties and wounded and the radio stations could get lost. We were sure our communications were being intercepted, there was such a possibility. So the guys made the independent decision to turn off all the radio stations, and as a result, communication with them was lost. When I arrived to get in touch with them, to explain what to do, basically the connection was already gone.
Yes, it was already dark. Our tank fired at the enemy. We were in the house, and the tank fired at the building across from us where the enemy's storage was. When the building caught fire and their ammunition started exploding, causing the enemy to flee into nearby houses, we had 1 hour to just relax. There was a little time to rest because the enemy's intensity became a bit less. Thank God, I had a thermal imager with me, so I walked around the house. There was 1, 2, 3 rooms in the house. I went into the furthest room and looked out the window. Saw no enemy through the thermal imager. I thought, great. 15 minutes later, I looked again, gathered the glass from the windowsill, and jumped out the window to see if the enemy was further away.
Climbed through the window, looked around, sat for 10 minutes, listened, thought, looked through the thermal again, no one. Great, need to move, need to seize the moment, and I approach closer to the window and slowly start to pull my group out, with the wounded, with everyone.
The plus was that we called the tank fire. It was the best option among what was nearby, and the tank fired around the house where they were located, and hit the house with the enemies, causing a fire, and the enemy scattered. This gave our guys the chance to leave the house and retreat.
Switch you.
Next door to through the gardens, we start moving out. It's a relatively small village.
There are large central roads, intersections, and whenever possible, we always moved through the gardens, but we also had to cross the road. When crossing the road, we had to walk a bit along the fence, and a group of 3 enemies appeared from around the corner. They did not see us again, and we quietly sat there, as it was cold. There was such a white moon, a full moon, everything was bright, we were perfectly visible. We quietly settled. About 20 meters away from us, they passed by, and I realized that we couldn't go by the road. We immediately moved to the gardens again and continued our exit. At the end of our path, just meters from the village exit, we ran into a patrol. We encountered a patrol. It started pressing us from behind, and a fight broke out again. All the other enemies gathered at the exit and the sound of gunfire. Because when we left the village, apart from us, there was no one else there. Everyone in the village was an enemy. We were the last group. We probably used something, but we were lucky that the enemy was dumb. Because we had a guy named Cat sitting at the end. I was closing the group. The enemy approaches, looks at him, shines a flashlight, and just asks him, "And who are you?"
And that's how it all started. Yes, it was very fortunate that they didn't immediately open fire when asked, "Who are you?" Received a burst of automatic fire, and
they just started, they began to gather from everywhere. Meanwhile, it happened that Little got in touch over the phone, explained the situation, and we understand that they are already on the way out.
We started to implement our artillery plan, which worked because, as it later turned out, according to Little, they pulled in a large number of reserves there, meaning they brought a lot of reserves, and this artillery simply took on there. Such losses they suffered were just unreal because, according to Little, those guys who were getting out of the encirclement said that at this moment they were already in every house in a group. We had excellent excellent artillery worked at 22 minutes. 3 brigades were working, everyone was involved. But then jumping ahead, the evacuation of the wounded and dead took place. There was simply nothing to transport the wounded and dead. A very large number of people entered the village and a large amount of artillery was used against it.
Gradually, we left the village in small groups, pairs or threes. Kozak and I were among the first to leave, picked up by our commander who was driving around the fields with a radio trying to contact us.
My phone rings, I pick it up, it's the Little calling. I couldn't believe my eyes at all. I answer, he says, "We made it out." With the Cossack is severely wounded, he's moving, everything is fine. We got out, pick us up. I am already driving up in the car at this moment, like I remember it now. I stop and say, the main thing is for you to cross the crossing because the crossing is under fire. At that moment, the little crosses the crossing and it gets hit by a missile. The crossing explodes, the bridge collapses, and little with Kazakh successfully leave, saying, well, at least we weren't on the crossing. These were the first two people who were successfully evacuated. Glad, happy in the moment, while taking little out, found out what was going on there, like the state of affairs, and I made the decision to go back. Little went with me, and then about 3 hours later, maybe even 4, the radio operator started transmitting on the radio because our people went out to collect ours. Out of 13, 11 came out. With a Meerkat, the Meerkat received the gunshot wound. We were in Zaporizhia. He came to us for the initial military training. He completed the course for young fighters from start to finish.
And then he joined our unit.
Meerkat was our unit's medic and received several gunshots. He realized that he was very heavy, was bleeding out. He couldn't even apply the tourniquet, and unfortunately, with the intensity of the fire we were under, no one could give him first aid. Kobe, we were retreating further, getting closer and closer out of the village, dragged Meerkat a bit, and he said that he was very heavy. Leave me.
He asked for a grenade, and the guys moved away from the Meerkat. About 20 to 30 meters back, then they heard screams of friendly, friendly, don't shoot, and heard the grenade explode.
He blew himself up.
He helped the guys get out. He was telling that he said, I surrender, and blew himself up with a grenade.
At the same time, colleagues are connecting with me. A few more people who didn't know the call signs are reaching these positions. I am once again glad, happy, shocked that the guys made it out. Then it turned out, how did you know where to go? You were already disoriented in space. We looked from which side our artillery was working and decided to head towards the artillery. And that's how we got out. Well done. They remembered, so we ended up at the positions of our neighbors. Some people were evacuated. 2 people, including Beaver and Porthos, came at night to the neighboring positions and escaped the encirclement. And the neighbors said, oh, we are just short on infantry here, sit down, you'll be on guard. They stood on post until morning. It's time for evacuation when the guys will also be transported during rotation. Shishpo, the vehicle arrived, and luckily all the guys were seated on top. The vehicle was heading for evacuation, but it got hit by a missile in short. There are casualties in the vehicle. Our guys were just thrown off from the top. I think, damn, the guys broke through the encirclement. They fought with the jerks at the positions at night. And at the end, they got hit with an anti-tank guided missile while on the transport. But overall, everything is fine. They got up, shook it off, cursed a bit, and moved on. A new transport arrived. In general, they say, like, okay, we will get there on our own, no need for another transportation. In general, they went on their own way to exit. Then they got into a car to Franz Kivna, the commander of the 8th Company, respect and honor. His guys saved a lot of our boys, helped a lot with evacuation. Real respect and gratitude to Skiff. We still keep in touch with him.
Guys are tigers, brief contact with opponents, no fear, no mercy. Pure task execution, close combat, breaking into enemy positions, landing on positions, deploying already on enemy territory. And with the execution of all assigned tasks, regardless of difficulty.